Everyone, my name is Mtshalis, and this is my husband.
Mtshalis, the author.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah.
So we've been together for almost 7 years in marriage, and we met back in varsity. We were at UJ, so we basically met each other in the year 2010 when I was doing my first year and he was doing his final year. So what had happened is he used to be like a pastor. I don't know how to put it, but there was this home cell that we used to go to. And in the home cell, basically he was like our leader type of a thing.
Yeah.
And he was friends with my cousin, whom they were doing their final year together. And Shem, honestly, when I saw him, I saw my husband. I know it sounds cliche, but I knew from the first day I laid my eyes on him that this one is the one. So he graduated in so he left in 2010.
Yeah.
And we stayed
we
behind.
didn't have anything, right? We were just a platonic relationship.
Yeah.
Pastor and
I had this huge crush on him. I think every girl had a crush on him, but obviously, I didn't see that girl, who was out there.
Before I had these Alpha guys, I was hot in himself. But
yeah, before he became Baba. So I never shot my shot as ladies would do it now. They'd be like, come on, do it. So I didn't. And also it was because he had a girlfriend at the time. Apparently there were rumors that he had loboled this girl. And the girl happened to be somebody that I knew. We knew each other. We went to the same high school. We were from the same hometown. But surprisingly, I've never seen the girl. And apparently there was like this picture of this girl in his room whenever we went for the services.
I'm a home sale.
Yeah, but he hid the picture, guys. Like, some boyfriend he was. Anyway, so fast forward, 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
He came back to visit us at the home cell.
I went back, to stay at Joe's.
Oh, yes.
Again, right? So I was like, let me go and see my children, how my kids, and all that, Yeah, I think first day I went there, I felt like you were like matured, we had a conversation, whereas before I saw you as umntwana kabo uzbanban, like basically a person who's just a new student, so I didn't really see you as a wife material, let alone a girlfriend, but this time around I came back. We had a conversation, a really mature conversation. I was like, okay, there's something in there, Yeah, and I tried my luck, And she was in a relationship. Ask her about the relationship and his own life support, Like his own life support, umuntu umthole emntwini umthakathi umthole esihlahleni so obviously there will be translations, guys. But yeah, I think I asked you out and you were like, you give me a chance, right?
Yeah.
And then that's how it happened.
Yeah, and that's how it happened. As you said, the previous relationship was on life support, and so I left the previous relationship, and
it was in 2012.
Yeah.
2013, I sent a letter to your parents, right? Asking for your hand in marriage.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started.
Yeah, and that was a bit dramatic, especially on my family side, because like we were really quite young. I think I was 21 at the time and he was like 23. So you can imagine my mom had these hopes of me going to school, graduating, working for myself, you know how mothers wish for their daughters and stuff. But that was never the case. But eventually, she had to let me go.
No choice.
And so we got into our first year of marriage, and contrary to most popular belief, I don't know, there's this thing that people say, like the first year of marriage is like always the hardest.
I think ours was beautiful from the minute we started dating,
Yeah.
From the minute we started dating up until we got married, even after marriage, it was one of those things, because you bump into people and they were like, guys, you in a year's time, this whole thing, will subside, marriage is tough and stuff, but we never actually experienced that.
Yeah, and I think that was because we were like with each other, like almost every time, everywhere we went, we were like together. But also that was like another thing for me that I had to get used to, because when we met with in my previous relationships, I was not used to being with the guy like 24/7. And when he came into my life, he was like, I want to see you every day, So it was like I had to transition to that, and I had to get used to that, So so I've gotten used to that, and I mean, it was total bliss. I don't want to lie. And obviously, because we were young at the time, there were like speculations. Why did they get married so soon? What are you guys hiding? Is she pregnant?
They thought she was pregnant,
And also, you guys are too young. You have this, what's this infatuation stage? It's gonna pass. Why don't you wait a little bit? But we never listened to all that. We just blocked the noise and we did our thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, it has been beautiful.
So have you come across any challenges in your marriage since getting married?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. For example, on my side, right, I initially thought if I am faithful, to her, it becomes easier, if you are faithful to her, nothing will happen in terms of you guys having fights and stuff like that, but it wasn't like that, I think it's that thing which is never discussed, right, where I feel like when you are a good guy, in a way, your partner can use that to their advantage, right? Because I remember in our fights, she used to leave a lot. She'd want to go home. Like now, we'd have an argument now. She'd be like, dude, I don't want to have this conversation, I'm done. So that came as a shock to me. I thought if I was faithful to my wife and I was all loving, we won't have any challenges. But now we keep on having the same challenges, right? And I think the more challenges that was like more hectic is the issue of insecurities. I think that's when you realize actually sometimes we bring our baggage from past relationships into our marriage, even if it's not from past relationship, just how we grew up from different backgrounds, we experience marriage differently, from her parents, from my parents. So when you come together, all those things, it's a conflict, So I think that was the one hectic thing that we had to deal with, the trust issues, to say, surprisingly, when my wife sees me, she sees a Denzel Washington, like she feels like every girl out there is just, after me and stuff like that. So we had those challenges to say, like, babe, I'm not that hot or handsome. It's only you who sees me like that. So calm down. So I think from my side, that was the one.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think we clashed a lot in terms of communicating. Whenever we had like conflicts, like we didn't know how to resolve conflict. And I think another thing that might have added to that was that we never had premarital counseling before we got into marriage, and it's only now that we've realized the importance of that. So but I like the fact that even though we didn't get it, he actually initiated that we go for it even during the course of our marriage, because he didn't want us to wait until we had problems for us to go into counseling. So the challenges that we faced were definitely conflict resolution, because we like clashed a lot in terms of how we resolve conflict. I was like, I've never been in situations where I was exposed to relationships where people actually sat down like humans and talked. I was exposed to relationships where there's like sometimes physical, so for me that was normal. For me that was like, it's normal. I grew up in that kind of setting, and for me it was really normal. I thought, okay, even in my marriage, these are the kind of things, or this is how you resolve things by shouting, sometimes not saying good things to each other. And through counseling, I learned that, there are so many ways of resolving conflict without actually being nasty to each other. So I think those were mainly our challenge in the marriage.
I love something that you guys both mentioned, that you started going for counseling. That is such something that is unusual in our culture. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, as a divorcee, I'm thinking, where does one even go for counseling? What kind of people do you look for when you're going for counseling? Do you just go next door and talk to someone next to your neighbor? Do you talk to your friends about problems? So when you talk about counseling, please elaborate that on that a bit for us.
Okay, so because I don't know, like, I always had this idea that my husband was perfect, right? I always thought, I looked up to him. Everything that he did in my eyes was like perfect, because I feel like he was actually more prepared to get into marriage than I was, which is actually like mostly the opposite, because a woman is always known to be ready, But one thing that he never wanted us to have was to always reporting to our families whenever we had issues, because they won't be as forgiving as we would be, because we would have issues. If he tells his parents what I did or what I said to him, they won't be as forgiving whenever we decide to go back to each other. So we decided that we're going to find somebody who was actually, I think the first couple that we went to, I don't know if you can mention them, but they're kind of like well known. Yeah. It's Mo and Pendi. So we went to them.
And because, I think just to add on that, right? Yeah. Remember, I think one thing that pushed us, especially with that one, right? I think we had an incident, right, where I think she asked me, to be honest with her, which have I ever, was there someone or a girl who in my life while we were together, where I was dishonest and stuff like that, So I remember there was this particular lady, right? She was into me, but as much as I knew which I won't cheat on my wife and all that, I think I entertained her, but she didn't find out until I think a year later when she asked me that question, and I was like, what, let me be honest with my wife and tell her, which actually there was this lady, our conversation, they just bordered on flirting, and I regretted that doing that, because
yeah.
So which part did you regret? Coming clean or ever entertaining, right? The lady?
At that moment, right, it was just coming clean, because I felt it has passed, right? We were over it, nothing happened. I entertained the lady who was into me, but in that space I felt it was conducive, for me. I felt I can be vulnerable and tell her, you know what, babe, I actually went through this. But when I went through it at the time, I only had discussions with a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, but I didn't tell her, because I didn't want her to panic and all that. It was, as I viewed it, nothing, But when I told her about it, it was just wild. Just wild. And I think that's when I was like, you know what, if you keep it between us, it just escalates and it takes a life of its own, So that's when we're serious then about finding someone who do coaching, and we couldn't go to people we know, or because we come from a very traditional church, and I knew one thing they tell us to go to a man cheats, and I knew that wouldn't solve our problems. We needed to find someone progressive, someone who understands the modern times we live in, So now we searched and found that couple, went to them, and it really helped to an extent, but you had to move to others, because you also realize the strengths and weaknesses of people who actually help, are counselors as well, but you take that beat that helps you in a relationship and then move forward. And I think from those discussions we realized, as much as we love each other, as much as we are best friends, and that's one thing people confuse. They think if you find the one, you won't have any challenges. Can't even if you find the one, I think in marriage that's the only place where you will have a confrontation with yourself, Because when you grow up, your parents lie to you about your habits and who you are. They won't be as hard to you, and your friends as well. If you do stuff, if you don't keep promises, they won't be as hard to you, right? You only discover that when you get married. There's stuff about you didn't know, because your partner won't lie to you. Your partner will tell it like it is. But dude, no, I don't like this thing with you. You sometimes don't brush your teeth in the morning. No, we can't have that, So a lot of that stuff is unbelievable, because some of it you'll be hearing it for the first time, But living with the person, guys, and trying to be compatible with that person is tough. It's the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
So we made it even now standard for our relationship. We're gonna go to marriage seminars. We're not gonna go to those counselors, because the stuff we absorb in our brains on a daily basis is toxic. What you see on TV, what you read on media is never positive things, So if you keep on feeding on that, that's the attitude you're gonna have, and you're gonna project that to your partner, even when they've done nothing, But because you've heard, hey, amadoda izinja, you start seeing your partner as that.
Yeah. And also, just to add to that, like the kind of marriage counselors that I think we prefer and we found most help from were also people who were like doing that I think as a career also, not just people who were like, okay, pastors, we're doing this because we're a pastor. We also found somebody who's a pastor but is actually practicing psychology. Yes, professionally, because then they would help us see things from a psychological perspective, just like how they point out things that we needed to work on individually before we worked on things as a couple, so when you actually get that perspective about yourself, when you get those things that you actually need to do the work you first, you need, if there are like childhood traumas that you need to get over, if there are other things that you need to unlearn, all those things, so they equip you with the resources to work on yourself first, so that you'd be able to be a better partner to your husband or wife. So
Yeah, wow. What I picked up is that even in marriage, as much as it's just the two of you, you are a union. You are still an individual yourself, and there are certain things that you need to fix yourself on before you can make your marriage work. That is very, very, very powerful, because majority of us, you go into marriage thinking love will fix whatever traumas that I have in life. Love, whatever experiences that I've had in the past, they don't matter anymore because I have this new partner. Wow, that is very powerful. So now you are parents to be two very, very beautiful children. Having children in a marriage, how did that change your life for the better or for the worse?
Sure, it changed it in so many ways. And I'd say good and bad. Good in the sense that we've learned to, as much as we've loved each other, but for me, I've learned what loving someone unconditionally is. I've learned so much about forgiveness. Like there was this example that my husband always makes about grace or forgiving. Like when you hit a child, you hit them now, like when they're being naughty and stuff like that. But 2 minutes later, they come back to you as if like nothing happened, And I think through that, I learned so much. Like, why can't we have like a childlike mind as couples where you like, okay, you did this, let me, because we tend to like hold grudges. And that's one thing that I've learned in marriage, that you need to be a forgiver in marriage. But back to your question, so many things had to change. Like I said, we used to be like best friends. My husband and I, we used to be like this everywhere we went. Literally, we worked for the same company for almost like 6 years. And so in the mornings we're together, at work we're together, we come back, we're together. There were times where I would be working and he wasn't working, but we'd go together and he'd wait for me to do the work and finish. So but then when the kids came, that had to change, because if the other one goes the other way, then kids had to come in, So there were like more responsibilities now, which I sometimes felt that we needed to put in more work as well, because if we let it go, then it meant that our marriage would also suffer, and I think, which is something that most couples don't take into cognizance, because a marriage can actually die from having kids. We're not saying kids are bad, but we tend to focus, especially as women, we tend to focus more on our kids, and we forget that the very same kids are going to grow up and they're going to leave us again, So what we tried to do was, I thought that we needed to be very intentional about our marriage. If we have to set date nights, then so be it. You know, if we need to work on it, whether kids are there or not. Yes, kids are there and they take up most of our time. Like even coming here today was a struggle, you know. So it changed, and also your sex life changes. Honestly, especially if you have a very young baby now.
I think it affects, more than anything, it just affects your sex life a lot.
Yeah.
Because now you get into having to schedule sex, which is something we don't know, you know.
It's foreign.
Like how to even schedule that, you know. Sex should come natural, but now...
we thought that it should come natural, but...
You should schedule sex and stuff like that. But I think one of the things for me that it made me realize we actually don't experience marriage the same, you know. I think that's why we have to listen to each other, you know. We have to be conscious, because you have this thing to think you are the one who's having it the worst, you know. I think that's one thing about marriage. You think you as an individual, your life is actually harder than the next person, you know. So I think that's one thing I learned, which we don't experience it the same. My life never changed, you know, when we had kids, in a sense that there was nothing. My friends were still there. I could still go and do certain activities, whereas with her, especially with culture, for 3 months you have to stay at home, you know. You cannot have umntwana at like is like a year going to crash and stuff like that. So that was tough, you know. But I think one advantage for me, she has someone else to focus on, you know. I think women by nature are just naturers, you know. So even when there's no child around, that part of them, they will still do, you know, practice on you. So she will try to control every part of my life, you know, whether be with friends, wherever I go, because naturally she cares, you know. And that's one thing they don't realize, you know, they are natural. So at certain times it becomes to the disadvantage of the relationship, because I'm an adult, you know. You cannot try to trace all my movement, try to time me whenever I go to friends, you know. That was a relief from my side. When we had a kid, I was like, now she has someone to focus on, you know. But
when I did that, also it was a problem, because now it's like I don't give him the attention. So there's like always, you know, there needs to be a balance of these things. But I think it helped in our relationship, in a sense that I had to view her differently. We had to have a different talk, you know, in a sense that if she's the one who takes care of the kids now, I cannot come back from it and just sit around, you know. Now I had to do something in the house. Either I bath and watch the kids, she cooks, you know, or I'm the one who cooks and all that. So that part I had to realize when we had the children, actually these house chores are taking a toll on her, you know. So it needs to change, you know. I cannot now be your traditional Zulu man who comes back from work and just chills, you know. I had to help as well, help out at home, you know. Help out with making the bed, help out with cleaning around and all those things. Something was new to me because I was born, you know. So I didn't do all those things at home, you know. But now, just realizing what my wife was going through and the toll it was taking on her, and she couldn't complain as well, because in a way that's what a wife is expected to do, you know. But now we're like, we go to work together, we come back, she has to take off kids, cook, and then I'm expected to have sex with me. So it's unfair in a way, you know. So it allowed us to have that conversation. So we became totally different new people altogether after having kids, I would say.
So you needed to learn and unlearn certain things, wow, that's very, very powerful, and it's something we take for granted, but it is a necessity, because when you're in marriage, you're thinking, I married this person, so I want to maintain this person, but you need to evolve, and it won't work if only one person is evolving. You need to both evolve. And Mr. Mtshalis, you touched on something very, very, very crucial, but it is often taken lightly. You did mention that you're a traditional Zulu man, but we live in modern days right now, and you'd had to leave behind certain things that you grew up knowing, just to accommodate your wife, just to accommodate your marriage, just to accommodate what you want to build with the family. So what are some of the things that you wish you knew, or something that you would advise men before they get married?
Sure. It's a lot, right? But I think I'll just focus on a few, right? There's a lot of things, and some it's unfortunate you can't even prepare for them, you know. You will find them out, because in marriage it's just different journeys, you know. No two marriages are the same, you know. So we take our own different journey, you know. But one of the things I had to come into terms with as the one first I mentioned, if you grow up from a home where the dad is the provider and he doesn't do anything in the house, my mom was fine with that situation because my mom didn't work. So just my dad being a provider was enough, But come back to my wife, she also is a provider as well, So we have a 9 to 5, both of us. So for her, being a provider is not enough. She just needed more than that, So that's when I had to just redefine what a man is, Because where I come from, if you do that, if you change a baby's diaper, it takes away from you as a man, I'll say indoor, And we had to redefine that and say, what is a modern man? It cannot be defined by house chores, We cannot say because you are now the one who's taking the broom, to sweep the yard. Now you're no longer a man enough. So I had to redefine that, and in redefining that, I had to lose a lot of friends as well, because now you come across as a person who's controlled by a wife, So those are one of the things we deal with in our modern marriages, right? And another thing, which was the toughest, before I got married, I thought, once you find the one, you won't see other women as attractive, You won't find any women attractive. You will only have eyes for your wife, But once you get married, nothing changed. I thought that switch would go off, but still, you could see other beautiful women. So I think one thing I realized is that being faithful doesn't come natural. You don't just you put in measures, How do you control your willpower, and your desire? So that's important, So you find yourself, okay, now there's certain things, there's certain stuff I won't do just so I can train my willpower, I don't entertain women. I think that's one thing I do, right? I don't give women lifts, right? Unless my wife is in the car, right? Secondly, I don't keep women, we don't have any business relationship on WhatsApp. If it's something that what's happening in that particular day, we talk about it, but I never save that person's number, because once there's a gap, once we fight, you go to these dormant phone numbers. Contacts, now, people who just laugh at your state. It starts like that, and that's one thing people they don't realize. Affairs don't start in one day. It can take a period of 2 years, right, for it to actually come to real life. But it's those little statements, small things you entertain. You and your wife, you look together. I wish I can have a husband like you, and you laugh it off, And then it gets more intense. You start enjoying chatting to that person. So that's part of it. I had to learn. Actually, being faithful doesn't even depend on my wife. I just have to have that vision myself. If I want to, what it is that benefits me about being faithful, because much of it. We place it on our women to say, if she doesn't appreciate me, then why should I remain faithful? If she doesn't see what I'm trying to do, this and all that. So it's as if we were doing it for our partners, right? So I had to find that myself to say, what benefits me individually by being faithful to my wife? Gives us peace. There's no fighting. There's no worry. I can go out there and just show my love to her without worrying there will be a conversation that will trend later on and stuff like that. So I think it's a lot. You learn. One thing people should know: love, it's a choice. Forgiveness is a choice. It's got nothing to do with your feelings. You don't have to feel good. Now I feel at peace for me to forgive them. You forgive them even when it hurts inside, because you know what forgiveness does. It changes your mindset about your partner. Because when you forgive, you harbor bad thoughts and bad feelings. And you cannot. When you have bad thoughts or feelings about someone, you cannot have good thoughts about them, right? It's hard to love them as well, right? But when you forgive, you force yourself to have those good emotions, about them, and then it will transfer into your thoughts, and then you just seeing them as beautiful and all that, And when it comes to love as well, same thing. I had to understand there will be moments when my wife will be disrespectful towards me, But if I respond with that disrespect, where will it take us, So I have to make a conscious decision in that present moment to say, okay, my wife may be hurt. That's why she's voicing her emotions like that, But now I have to take a decision to be a bigger person to say, because this is not a battle, we're not fighting up. That's one thing couples don't get, we're trying to make this work, put away your personalities, you know, and just focus on. If I see my wife is in a bad state now and she's saying stuff that's hateful, why should I return that? You know, I will take that at the moment and love her. Then later on I will address those things, you know. But sometimes we live in a culture where it's a tit for tat, you know, an eye for an eye, and that doesn't work in marriage. It never does. Good. Because you've hurt me now, I will hurt you. It will just continue. One thing, there will be one person who's strong. There will, at the time, there will be one person who's weak. So if God has given you powers at the time to be strong, carry your partner.
Complement each other.
Yes.
Not a competition. Oh, I love that. So you said something, you got married at an age that was considered too young. But then there are also women, more especially at churches, that feel pressured to get married because they feel like they're getting too old. For you, now you've been married for 7 years. So I think it just proves that there is no right age to get married. So what advice would you give a woman out there who's currently feeling pressure, like maybe they're running out of time, or they feel like I'm too young to get married, but I feel like I'm ready, but everything is against, the odds are against me? What would you advise a young girl right now?
Well, I would say that there isn't a manual to this life thing. Be it marriage, be it career, be it... You can have your life planned out for the next 10 years, but sadly God decides, you know? So whatever you may have in your plans, God will decide. I think it's the same as somebody who's saying, like you're saying, other women prefer to wait until they have their career intact, until they have, you know, financially they are stable. You know, other people choose to do that. But I'm always saying, even in that, if you choose to wait, you can still get retrenched at work, you know? And then what's going to happen now if you've decided to wait until, you know, that long? So it's like you never really get this, there's no blueprint to life. So whether you choose to get earlier in the marriage or later in life, it really doesn't matter. What if you feel like you are ready, whenever that is, do it. And I think, like, if it's really meant to be, and like we've said, it takes two people who are willing to get into the ring and fight fairly for what is their marriage, you know. Then I think that's where we get stories of abakokobethu nabomkhulu who are married for like 40 something years, and you wonder, oh my God, you know, how did they do it?
And
but it's
more than that, sorry to cut in, I think it's that thing where women especially, their values attached to a marriage, right? So they pressure themselves into situations they see themselves with. This is not good for me, you know. This person is not the right kind of person for me. But because the society has placed so much a prize on marriage, me as a man, married or not, I'm still a man. You know, I can be a 40-year-old, I can be a 50-year-old. I will still get the respect that I deserve, you know? But with women, it's different, and they put that pressure amongst each other as well. I think if you can remove that pressure and say, be it you get married or not, you know, you are still beautiful, you're still
enough, even.
You're still enough.
Yeah, there's like really... And then also, guys, like, I think we had in one of our live sessions, we had a topic about whether marriage is an achievement or not. And I always say it may not be an achievement, but staying married is actually the achievement, you know. So don't feel like you are missing something, or you are not woman enough because you don't have a ring, or whatever the case may be, you know. So I think that's the one, like he said, the one mistake that we often do. You'd find yourself falling for brother or wrong, somebody that you know, this guy, you know, and then it leads to what? A divorce. Hence we have the high rates of divorce. We have I think one thing also that we tend to downplay is the importance of marriage. When we're getting married, we're not doing it just for us to be like a power couple, so to speak. We are building a society, actually. You know, we're raising kids who we want to be stable when they get older. We don't want kids who have to, you know, get over the traumas that they had from their childhood. You know, we want healthy marriages. We want to raise healthy kids. It's not only just for us. So hence I'm saying, don't do it, because at the end, there are like young people that you're going to be hurting, because you're going to get married and want to have kids and want to have a family. So if you know that this is really not for you, or if you can feel that this is really not for me, don't do it, because you're killing that child who's going to now have to grow up having generations later, and I think as this generation, that's what we're trying to fix, having healthy kids who come from healthy families, especially as black people, so I think that's what we should really try to strive on achieving more than anything. So
wow. As we are nearing the end, I love me some black love, and you guys look so amazing together. But I've really learned a lot from you today, and one of which is that it's not about getting married to be goals. It's about wanting it for yourself, wanting it so that you can be better contribution to society by raising happy children. You might get married as these people, but you need to evolve time and again in your marriage. And most importantly, marriage is about two people that want to make it work. Two people that constantly choose each other and understand that it is them against the world and they are not enemies. I love it. Yeah. In closing right now, the divorce statistics are very, very, very high. And seeing you right now, I believe I'm seeing you in your 6-7 years anniversary, but counting to forever. What advice would you give people out there? Because I strongly believe that love works, marriage works. I love me some black love. I'm sitting right in front of a couple that even in future other couples will look up to. There are a lot of young couples, newlyweds, whose marriages are already shaken. What advice would you give them?
Sure. I think currently it's that we have an idealized view of what marriage is. We don't know what it's an actual and real marriage, We don't have access to real couples anymore, I know we're having this conversation about it, and we're like, which couple can it go to, which we have access to if we want to know about the experiences of marriage, and realize we don't actually have that. The only marriages we have access to are the ones you see on your soapies, the ones you see on social media, and those we know, they are not real, they portray, they give you guys what you want to see, so we take those images and come back with it in our own marriages, and then it becomes difficult now you judge your partner based on a celebrity who always posts their wives, and you come here like, why don't you post me on Facebook and stuff like that?
And mind you, that time you have a perfectly healthy relationship, but the issue would now be you're not posting me enough.
So I think that's one thing, right? We don't understand what marriage is. I think if you can just go back and learn about it, what marriage is, what love is, I think we are so narcissistic as individuals these days, right? When we get into a marriage, actually it's not for our own benefit, right? It's for only our own benefit, not the next person, and that's the challenge. We get into it wanting to be loved. Even you see people talking about the list where they want a partner who's like this, they want a partner who has this, but they never actually create their own list of themselves to say what it is I'm gonna contribute in that relationship, and that's where the problem starts. Love has two parts. It's either you are being loved or you are the one who's actually doing the loving, right? So now when you grow up, we are just used to that part. Your parents love you, your friends love you, don't return that. Once you get married, it actually stops being about you and it becomes about that other person now. You actually have to do the loving now. You have to focus a lot of your attention off yourself and just sacrifice it to that next person, be selfless, But these days we love you, only to an extent that you can return that love. And if you don't return that love, I feel like no, you don't love me anymore. I think that's one thing we don't understand these days. Actually, guys, this thing is tough. It's not easy. It's not easy learning a person. Not easy trying to get to know them. You don't know yourself as well. Imagine living with another person, you're trying to know them. Come on, you won't know that person, but appreciate those bits of them, and work with them and love them regardless.
And I would say that somebody once said there's no such thing as being compatible, especially when you meet each other, because we have this thing of saying
it's not a prerequisite, right?
It's really, yes, we have this idea that you have to be compatible on your first date, and we are like, no guys, you cannot. How can you be compatible with somebody that you don't know? We literally met at school. He's from Tembisa, I'm from the Val. We literally grew up in different settings, and from two different worlds. So where would compatibility be there? But you actually work to be compatible as you grow older in the marriage. And also try not to idolize other people's marriages, like we said. Like, your marriage is your own marriage. Do whatever works for your marriage, because what works for us might not be what works for you. Like the same example that I made, like especially us women, we have this problem that if somebody goes on Facebook and they see Mtshalis posting Mthuli all the time, and you have a perfectly healthy relationship, your partner loves you, they communicate with you, a healthy thing, but just because your partner is not doing a certain thing, and then you're thinking, there must be something wrong with him, so you need to learn to know your partner's love languages, I think, as well. And just go for marriage counseling. Most importantly, don't underestimate the power of marriage counseling, guys. And also, you always need to have that third party in your marriage, that person who's always gonna not gonna take sides, because when emotions go high, guys, like, everybody wants to be right, so you need somebody that will ground the both of you and just show you guys both your mistakes, as much as you need to do the work individually, but you always need somebody that you can be accountable to, like a mentor, a counselor. So don't downplay that. Like, marriage is not a child's play, guys. Honestly, it's not. You need to make it work. You need to put in the work for it to flourish.
Okay, so you, at some point in your life, you were looking for other couples that you could draw inspiration from, and you could not find those couples. So much so that you started your own channel whereby you actually invite other people to come and share their experiences of marriage, be it good and bad, so that you can draw inspiration from them. I enjoy listening to those stories. I draw inspiration from them. Where can other people find you? How do they get hold of these broadcasting or live sessions that you normally have, so that they can also learn from other people's experiences?
It's on Facebook. You can follow me on Motha Mtshalis on Facebook, and Instagram's the same name. Just we putting out there, we're not giving people advice, just realities of our marriages, because sometimes you go through stuff, you think they affect you uniquely, only to find out that it's actually a norm. Guys, whenever you have fights, sometimes they stonewall you, they go quiet, they just go within themselves, and you think there's something wrong with your husband. Can you actually find men are like that? They actually, for them to talk, they prefer a certain environment that is not hostile, an environment that is friendly for them to, and less judgmental, for them to open up. So we give people that opportunity to say, look at these couples, you might find your story in it. So
so that's basically where you can find us.
Okay, thank you very much for making time for us. Lots of love and blessings in your marriage, and I hope that through your work more people can get help. Love and leave you. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.